Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Relationships subreddit from Improvement Evening 73, and it says, Am I the arsehole for not wanting to have kids after my husband assumed I would grow out of it? I, 26 female, have been married to my husband, Damon, 34 male, for about a week. We've been together for 4 years and met on Hinge. Before anyone asks, yes, I realize how ridiculous it sounds that we apparently never had a proper conversation about children before getting married. I'm aware, please judge me accordingly. When we first met on Hinge, I had my profile set to I don't want kids under the kids/family section. Damon's profile didn't have anything selected. I saw that and for whatever reason assumed he was either indifferent about kids or didn't really care either way. I'd already decided long before meeting him that I didn't want children. It wasn't something I was unsure about or something I thought I might change my mind on. I've always felt pretty strongly that motherhood just isn't something I want for myself. We've been together for 4 years and honestly, we've talked about everything. Money, careers, family, where we want to live, marriage, our future, literally everything you could think of. Except kids. I know, stupid. It genuinely never came up as an actual conversation because to me, it wasn't a question. I didn't want kids, so I never thought I needed to announce it every 6 months. I'd also told my parents years ago that I didn't want children, and coming from a fairly traditional and cultural family, that was actually a pretty big conversation for me. It took a lot of convincing for them to accept that I wasn't going to follow the traditional path of getting married and having children. Damon knew my parents were initially unhappy about it, so I assumed he knew how serious I was. Anyway, we got married about a week ago. On our wedding night, Damon looked at me and said something along the lines of, "It's crazy that we can finally start our family now." I was a little confused but said, "Yeah, Milo is going to love having a little ragdoll sibling." For context, Milo is our cat, and I've been wanting another cat for ages. Damon just stared at me and said, "I mean, a human baby." I genuinely thought he was joking. He wasn't. I reminded him that I didn't want kids and that my Hinge profile literally said that when we met. He told me he saw it but assumed I would grow out of it. Apparently he has always wanted children and thought that once we got married I would naturally change my mind. He then started talking about how he's getting older and wants to have his own kids. He said he doesn't have forever to wait and that he needs to become a father. I understand that he is 34 and that if having biological children is important to him, he might feel like he's running out of time. But I'm honestly struggling to understand how this has somehow become my responsibility when he knew from the beginning that I didn't want children. If having kids was this important to him, why did he never bring it up? He had 4 years. He could have asked me at any point, "Do you still feel that way about kids? Or would you ever consider having children?" Instead, he saw something very important about my future that I'd clearly stated and decided I would eventually change my mind. I know people will probably point at our age gap. I'm 26 and he's 34, so yes, there's an 8-year difference. But weirdly, I've always been the more mature one in the relationship. I'm the oldest daughter in a fairly cultural and traditional family, so I've had to grow up pretty quickly, and I've had to stand my ground on things like this. Damon, meanwhile, has always been the more carefree one. I'm not saying that to insult him, it's just part of why this whole situation feels so bizarre to me. I also feel incredibly betrayed because I thought I was marrying someone who accepted that a life with me would be a child-free life. Now I'm sitting here wondering if he married me expecting that I would eventually surrender on something I consider a fundamental part of who I am. I don't want kids. Not now, not when I'm older, not once I have a career, not once I meet the right people, and not because Damon says he's getting old. I don't think I should have to have children just because my husband wants them, but I know I made a huge mistake by never explicitly asking him what he wanted. I assumed his lack of an answer meant he didn't care, and he assumed my very explicit answer meant I'd change my mind. So now we're married, 1 week in, and apparently have completely different ideas about what our future looks like. It has been very, I'm assuming it's meant to be weird or something like that, since our wedding night. It wasn't how I ever imagined my wedding night, and now I'm thinking if I should have a kid for him because I do love him, but at the same time a baby deserves a mother who wants them. I would love some advice and insight if I'm the arsehole in this situation. Thanks in advance everyone. And edit. Thank you so much for all the advice and helpful tips everyone is overwhelmingly saying to get a divorce lawyer / annulment. I come from a very cultural, religious and traditional family. I'd rebelled enough by 1. Not wanting kids, 2. Marrying a white man. I'm scared to put my dad in a coma. I do agree if this is something he persists on, I do have to take action. Some people have also been asking why I don't want kids. I mentioned in a comment, but I will copy it here too. I grew up in a very cultural / religious household. And while my parents were not bad people, my upbringing still caused me a lot of problems. I've struggled with my mental health for most of my life, and I think that has played a huge role in how I feel about having children. One of my biggest fears is bringing the child into the world, doing my absolute best to raise them and still somehow causing them pain or leaving them broken in some way. That thought genuinely breaks my heart. The fact that my parents weren't bad people honestly scares me even more. They were just regular people who loved me and were doing what they thought was right, and I still ended up carrying a lot of pain from my childhood. It makes me terrified that I could unintentionally do the same thing to another person. I just don't think I'm ever going to be a good mother, and I don't feel mentally or emotionally regulated enough to take responsibility for another human life. I know some people might say I could change my mind or that I'd feel differently once it was my own baby, but I really don't want to gamble with another person's life on the possibility that I might. And then there's pregnancy itself, which is, very scary. Very, very scary. I don't know if any of that makes sense. Thanks again, everyone. I will talk with him and update you all. The commenter says to OP, not the arsehole, read back over your second last sentence. You know that you don't want a child. Just because you didn't have an explicit conversation about it doesn't mean that you now owe him a baby. See if you can get the marriage annulled and set you both free to find partners who are a better match. Commenter says not the arsehole. He is though, because he knew how you felt and figured you would change your mind. At least you could honestly say you never knew what he wanted as far as kids go. Maybe master manipulator on his part, thinking he could guilt you into it and look at you wondering if you should change your mind for him. If you don't want kids, you aren't compatible and should try for an annulment. Don't force yourself to be a mother for him. The child will always suffer. The other commenter says absolutely do not have a kid to make someone else happy. You have no idea what kind of father he'll be or how much of the mental and parental role you'll have to shoulder. You can't unhave a baby. It's game over once they're born. A child deserves to be brought into the world wanted and loved, not as a way to keep a man. Unfortunately, you're fundamentally incompatible with your husband. It's not just about hoping you'll change your mind. It's disrespect and a lack of consideration and care that he withheld his wants to trap you into changing your mind. He doesn't listen to you or care what you feel or have to say. It's not important as long as his needs are being met. If he respected you, he'd respect your no, not the arsehole. And one more commenter says, quoting, now I'm sitting here wondering if he married me expecting that I would eventually surrender on something I consider a fundamental part of who I am. Then says, well, yes, he literally told you he expected you to grow out of it not wanting kids. If he has his heart set on kids and you don't, then divorce is the only option. Maybe you can get an annulment, terms vary by state. Everyone sucks here, as you both should have discussed this before marriage. He's more of an arsehole, as he had read your comment about being child-free, but he didn't take it seriously. To me, she didn't hide how she felt about children. He literally saw the I don't want kids. If I saw that on a dating profile or whatever, I'd definitely assume they don't want kids, or at least ask them about it, question it or something before getting to the point of marriage. And yes, they absolutely should have had a proper conversation before getting married, and I think OP acknowledges that, but that doesn't feel like equal mistakes. She assumed that his blank answer meant he was indifferent, and he saw her explicit answer, knew about the conversation she had with her own family about being child-free, and apparently thought she'd grow out of it. That's wild. And it sounds like all the commenters were saying there is no other way. If you don't want kids, he wants kids. Incompatibility, there is no way forward. It really is as simple as that, isn't it? But OP does come in with an update and says, hey everyone, sorry this update took a few days. Thank you so much for all the advice and support. There are a lot of opinions in the comments as expected, but overwhelmingly, people were supportive and encouraged me to look into an annulment. I also saw quite a few people calling Damon evil or saying he was a terrible person. I just want to say that I don't think he's a bad person. He's my husband and I love him very much. We've been together for 4 years and he's given me millions of amazing moments throughout our relationship. I don't think one awful moment suddenly erases all of that. That being said, I absolutely agree that what happened was a very, very bad moment, and it understandably made me question our entire marriage. I did speak to him about everything. He told me that he loves me very much and that he can live without having children. He said that he never really needed kids and that what he said on our wedding night was a moment of weakness. He also said that he wants to redo our wedding night because he feels horrible about ruining it for me. As much as I would love to redo that very special moment, this actually confused me even more. I reminded him that he specifically told me he thought I would grow out of it and that he was getting older and didn't have forever to wait if he wanted children. I told him that I don't want him to simply say he can live without kids because he's afraid of losing me. If there is even a part of him deep down that genuinely wants children, I don't think it'd be fair to either of us to ignore that. I don't want to wake up 5 or 10 years from now and have him resent me because he gave up something he actually wanted. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if he secretly regrets choosing me. I also brought up the possibility of an annulment, because maybe that really is the best thing for both of us. He went very quiet and just listened to me. It was a very emotional couple of hours. Eventually we left it there and agreed that we would revisit the conversation. And almost 24 hours later, he came to me after work and told me that he had been thinking about everything. He said he doesn't want either of us to resent the other and that, unfortunately, maybe an annulment really is the best option. I'm not going to lie. Hearing him say that absolutely broke my heart. I love this man. I married him because I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. I didn't expect to be talking about ending our marriage so soon after our wedding. But at the same time, I think we're both starting to understand that love isn't necessarily enough when two people want fundamentally different things for their future. And I don't want either of us to sacrifice something this huge and eventually become bitter about it. Before we do anything though, I need to talk to my parents. I want to let them know what's happening before I suddenly spring on them that my marriage to Damon is over. I don't think they'll be able to talk me out of it, and I'm not asking for their permission, but I do feel like they deserve to hear it from me. I'm not looking forward to this conversation. For those who read my original post, you know that I come from a very cultural, religious and traditional family. I've already gone against a lot of what my family expected from me by choosing not to have children and by marrying Damon. I'm genuinely scared about how my parents are going to react to me telling them that my marriage is ending after only a few weeks. I plan on going over after work tomorrow or sometime later this week when they're free and having the conversation in person. So that's where things stand right now. I don't really know what's going to happen next, but I think Damon and I both need some time to process everything. Thank you again to everyone who gave advice and shared their experiences. It honestly helped me more than I can explain. And if anyone has advice about how I should approach the conversation with my parents, especially given the family situation I described in my original post, I'm definitely open to hearing it. I'll update you guys again after I've spoken to them. As sad and heartbreaking as this one is, it's probably the best outcome, and thank goodness that Damon actually went away and thought about things rather than just saying that, oh no, he can live without kids, because like OP was saying, resentment can creep in, and 5-10 years down the line, like OP said, things could explode then. The initial part of the story still bothers me that he knew she didn't want children from the beginning and simply assumed the whole grow out of it. You know, that was 4 years, which this incompatibility could have been discovered before the wedding even happened. OP should have explicitly asked him too, but she wasn't the one expecting the other person to fundamentally change. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story, it comes from Throwaway Moveaway 129, who says, would I be the arsehole if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiance and his mum can't afford it without me? Throwaway because my fiance follows my main. Me, female 29, and my ex-fiance, male 27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiance got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple of years and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiance is from the Midwest and his mum has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID, my office shut down and we all went work from home. After COVID, they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% work from home since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I've been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this, I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50. So the problem started this past May. Fiance's mum told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would just be for a couple of months over the summer. Since I thought it was only for a couple of months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and fiance bought a bed to put in the 2nd bedroom. The problem is, she never applied for any teaching positions and she's been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places because she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down, and I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September, I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mum is going to stay a while, we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation, he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mum, and he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting his mum on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate at the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of the rent on our current apartment and also half the rent in my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mum are able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'd do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the arsehole for leaving them like this. So the first commenter says not the arsehole. His mum is the biggest arsehole because she specifically planned this. It isn't that she's had bad luck. She didn't even apply. Add in that she didn't respect your workplace and insults you. She's basically trying to be the matriarch of the house while being a complete mooch. The biggest problem is your fiancé though. This is just a glimpse of your future with a mama's boy. He's made it clear he's okay with her walking all over you and she's not leaving. You're going to end up as a 3rd wheel in your own marriage. Commenter says, I'm a teacher, an old, retired teacher. I could substitute teach every day this week if I wanted to do so. I still get requests to appointment/interview for both public school and private school jobs. Mother-in-law could work if she wanted to work. I'm in my late 60s and I drive all over and in Mexico and Europe on vacation. She is needlessly helpless. Commenter says, good news, you discovered your fiancé is a mama's boy before you legally entangled. The price is 3 months of paying double rent. Sucks, but much cheaper than a divorce, alimony, child support, and years of therapy because of dealing with that kind of mother-in-law. Mummy wanted to prove her darling boy would pick her and take care of her, so she moved in and proved it. He won't stand up to her. Sadly, unless he gets some serious therapy and figures out how to unmesh, he's never going to. So tell him flat out, Mummy wins. She gets her widow boy back. You'll find a grown man. He'll pay for your portion of the rent for the next few months, but you're letting the landlord know you'll not be renewing and do not use your income for renewal for him and Mummy. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You did what you could, but unless he wants to grow up, you're going to spend decades hearing how you don't cook right, clean right, raise your kids, spend money, vacation wrong, and have bad values. She of course knows better. Don't do that to yourself, and maybe, just maybe, this will make him realize he's got to get off of Mummy's titty if he ever wants a life of his own. And one more from Sassy who says, OP, you are far too nice. Boyfriend and his work-shy mummy are playing a game because they know you will suck it up. I'd go scorched earth and get my name taken off the lease and move out. Screw them. You are heavily subsidizing 2 able-bodied grown-ups from the corner of a bedroom. You'd do so much better on your own. and deep down, you know it. Sophie came in with her first update and said I posted here last week about the situation I'm living in with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mum. If anyone's interested, the original post is here, and shared the link. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my soon-to-be ex and his mum take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed off at myself for allowing this to happen, not advocating for myself more. This past weekend, I got my soon-to-be ex alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been because his mum always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this, and also brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex. I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mum. Not because I thought he would, I just wanted to be able to tell myself I gave him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation. I was affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up again the way she treats me and talks to me, and he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that's really uncomfortable for us all. What the fuck? I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously, I would have dropped it there, but this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there, and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story. She has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently, which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband/ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here, she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, ex didn't have much insight to her finances, other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month, and from now on I'm only paying 25%. As some of the commenters pointed out, she has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child, so she should have to pay twice as much. And after I move out, I'm not paying for anything else. No utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like. If he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself, it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries, there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the cash. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rent agreement together, example, one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we sign individually, we're both responsible for the rent. I don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or together with his mum, but in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own. I'm kind of stuck. I don't think he'd do anything stupid though, because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this, and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find some place to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9 to 5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mum, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it, I get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files and valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mum. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him, and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mum? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is, but we still need to help her, etc." He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out I need some space from him. In a few months, when we both had some time and space to process what happened, if we both agree we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward, and we will set boundaries with his mum. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mum because she's not my responsibility or problem, and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things, so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on when she actually leaves. I didn't expect him to do anything bad other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I tell the leasing office his mum moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now. That's a pretty valid threat, I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mum, I'm looking forward to a reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So that's it. I'm leaving, and I really don't care how that affects them. So Opie comes in with another update and says, "Hey everyone, I've been getting a lot of requests for an update, so I wanted to let everyone know how it went when X's mum found out about me not covering all the rent and moving out. Last week, I started working out of my friend's apartment, the one I'm moving in with, so I didn't see X's mum on Monday. Tuesday around lunch, she sent me a text asking where I was. I told her I was working and I'd be home late tonight. She replied that X told her I wasn't going to be contributing as much, so she had to loan him money for rent. That wasn't a surprise to me, so I just replied with a thumbs up emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, who I'm also friends with, to go out for dinner and then get some drinks. So by the time I got home, it was after midnight and X's mum was already asleep. The fun started Wednesday morning. I was getting ready to go to work at my friend's place when X's mum stopped me and said we need to discuss my financial situation. Then she went on a whole tirade about her having to cover my part of the rent, me making foolish choices by going out to dinner when I couldn't even pay rent. I was irresponsible with money and inconsiderate of the impact it had on others, blah blah blah. She went on to say that if she was going to have to pay my share of the rent, that she expected me to do a better job of keeping on top of the chores and keeping the apartment clean and organised. I told her I was moving out since obviously soon-to-be ex hadn't told her yet. She seemed, I don't know, pleased with herself? All she had to say was, maybe that's for the best. When I got home that night, right off the bat, she wanted to talk. She said instead of me moving out, we could get a bigger apartment and she'd be willing to help by paying. The difference between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom. Then we could go back to the arrangement X and I had before she moved in. Me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3. Honestly, when she was saying this, I think my brain vapor locked. She was making it sound like she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in rent. Apparently, this man-child who tells his mum literally every single thing about our lives and relationship hadn't bothered to tell his mum how much I was actually contributing. It seems like once she discovered X wasn't paying for everything like she thought, she wasn't as excited about me moving out. I tried to be polite and told her I'd already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month, and already committed to move in with my friend. She kept pushing the issue and said if she was willing to pay the difference, I should just stay because that would really be the best for everyone. By then, I was getting annoyed and told her that because of the way she's been acting and treating me, I had no interest in living with her anymore. That's when the best line of this whole dumpster fire came out of her mouth. She said she was worried I was taking advantage of her son, and if we had told her about our financial arrangement, she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't keeping up with the apartment. I told her maybe a good lesson from this is to try to be nice to everyone in the future and not just the people you think can help you. And I asked her why she didn't help out more since she wasn't doing anything productive all day. She did not like either of those comments, and it got pretty hostile with both of us yelling at each other, and to be fair, we both said some pretty awful things to one another. Finally, I told her I was going to inform the rental office that she'd been living there contrary to the lease agreement because getting evicted would be worth it to see her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friend's. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag. Next afternoon, Thursday, X texted me and said he added his mum to the lease effective the 1st of the month, and that she and his dad, I have no idea how that poor man got roped into this, would pay half the rent and X would pay the other half. I confirmed with the property manager that I was off the lease and didn't have any further obligation. I got an email, so I have a record. I put disconnect orders in for the utilities under my name and told him to call and set up accounts under his name. I'm going to lose the damaged deposit. It goes to whoever is living there when the lease ends, but it's a small price to pay to be free. On the way home, I stopped and got a bunch of boxes to pack my stuff up. She was pretty hostile when I got home, and when she saw how much I was taking, she got worse. I ended up taking Friday off to finish packing, and on Saturday, got some friends to help move stuff to my new place. I'm going to pay my friends some rent for the next 2 weeks until the one move out. They didn't want me to, but I'm not going to stay in someone's home and not contribute. If nothing else, living with X and his mum taught me that. Last night, X and I got together and talked for the first time since Saturday. He said his mum is staying until June when the lease is up, and she's moving back to their hometown. According to him, she just really didn't like living here, and that's why she didn't try to find a job. Then he asked how long a break I thought we should take. A few commenters gave me a hard time for stringing him along, so I was brutally honest and told him I could not be with someone that allowed others to treat me the way he allowed his mum to treat me, and I hoped he learned to stand on his own and establish some boundaries. He looked like he was going to cry and just got up and left. As far as I'm concerned, this whole thing is over and done. I'm going to call it a learning experience and be glad I found out how awful his ex's mum is before we got married. The thing that amazes me is the amount of damage this woman leaves in her wake and how utterly oblivious she is. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving X in a much worse financial situation, pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by I don't know how many years, since how he likely has to pay off the mortgage, or second mortgage, yet to get to pay her half the equity. And she made my life hell for 6+ months, and she's walking away completely unscathed. According to my ex, she's going back to her hometown and picking up her old teaching job. I'm thinking about going to visit my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how boring and undramatic they are and how I'm so grateful for that and love them for it. Lol. One of the top commenters said to OP, I wonder what mother-in-law's endgame was. Probably to get her son to move back home to their hometown. Now that she's husbandless, she wants her son to step into that role, and he wouldn't do that while married and away. But now he won't be married and can't afford to live away. Diabolical. Opie responded saying I've been asking myself the same thing since I heard she is planning to move back home. Honestly, I think you nailed it, especially when you factor in her divorcing her husband when X went to college. He told me about that before his mum moved here. I remember thinking at the time that was kind of weird. I just figured they were one of those couples that stayed together for the kids, and now it seems so much worse. A commenter says it sounds like your ex wanted to save his pride and avoid disappointing his mother by concealing how much of the expenses you were paying, and he happily threw you under the bus to do so. Even when confronted with what his mother was doing to you as a result of his lies, he kept it up. His mother was damaging to your relationship, but it was mostly him that wrecked it by betraying you like that. I'm just glad you found out the truth about the kind of person he is before you got married. OP says, I do think this is a lot of it. She made a really big deal about him getting an MBA, and I think she assumed he was going to be making a huge salary out of the gate. To be fair, he probably will make good money in the future, but he needs to put his time in and work for it. I think he's afraid and embarrassed to tell her what he really made. Plus, he has student loans for his MBA to pay for. He's going to have a few lean years. But we all do, so there's nothing wrong with it other than it didn't match her expectations. Another commenter said to OP it's ridiculous it took her destroying literally everything to finally move back to her hometown. She looked pleased with herself because already at ass thought she won until you brought the hammer of reality down. She has a lot of fucking nerve lecturing you about how to keep your own damn house when she doesn't do shit. She didn't like that comment because it was the truth. Your ex's spinelessness led up to this blow up, and if he had the balls you thought he had in the first place, he would never have let her destroy his life the way she has. And now he's stuck with her for months. I think that is a damn fitting punishment. Opie responds saying anytime we asked her to do something like loading or unloading the dishwasher or other minor chore, she'd complain that we're asking her to take care of our apartment. It really was mind-blowing that she would complain like this, but literally wouldn't do anything unless my ex basically begged, and then she'd make a big deal over all the help she was giving us. So Opie came in with what they've titled their final update and says, I haven't posted here because honestly there hasn't been any real drama or update since my last post, but I've had several people DM asking for an update, so I thought I'd let everyone know how everything turned out. If you haven't seen it, you can find the history in my profile. After I moved out of my ex's and I's place, I did end up going to visit my parents for a while. It was really just to give the girl whose lease I was taking over space to get her stuff packed up and moved out. It was great to visit my parents, and they were really supportive about everything and the choices I made. Mum and I spent a whole Sunday afternoon on the couch watching awful Hallmark movies while Dad fed us way too many mojitos. I've been living with my friend for about 4 months and everything has been going great. I feel like we're both super respectful and considerate of each other and it's made everything so easy and chill. After dealing with my ex's mum for so long, it was kind of a shock not to have all the drama and toxicity. I did hear from ex's mum 3 times after I moved out. The first time she texted to ask if I'd taken the air fryer. I did, it was mine. Then she texted a couple of weeks later asking me to give her a ride to the pharmacy to pick up her prescriptions. And then she texted one last time telling me I needed to pay May part of the utilities for the last month I lived there. I ignored her the first 2 times, and the last time I responded that she should either use the money she saved while I was covering her rent or use the money they get back from the damaged deposit. It's been crickets since then. I did see my ex one last time about 6 weeks ago. He found some of my stuff that I'd accidentally left behind, so we met up so he could give it to me. I was glad we met up because it convinced me I'd done the right thing. I didn't feel anything when I saw him except for relief that I didn't need to deal with his mum anymore. He asked if I'd be willing to give it another try if he put boundaries in place with his mum. I was honest and told him that I didn't see him in that way anymore and did not want to get back together. He looked like he expected an answer and didn't make a fuss. He did say that after I left, stuff with his mum got pretty tense. I guess things were tight financially, which I knew would happen, and she was upset that due to his job he couldn't drive her around and cater to her needs. He said she ended up moving back to their hometown the beginning of May, which was the final month of their lease. He said he was going to move back also once the lease was up because his friends were in the middle of leases and already had roommates. He didn't want to live with a stranger and the only apartments he could afford on his own were studios in really sketchy areas. So he's going back home and living with his dad. He didn't have a job there yet, but he figured it was the safest option. He's got his MBA and almost a couple of years of work experience since graduating, so he's hoping that I help him find a new job reasonably quickly. I kind of feel bad for him because he loves it here and his hometown isn't awesome. I didn't feel too bad though, since it's really his own fault everything ended up this way. He didn't say how or what his mum was doing and I didn't ask. I haven't seen or heard from him since then. I was pretty clear I wasn't interested in trying again, and I don't want to be friends as I don't need the drama. I've had a couple of casual dates, but really I'm not looking for anything right now. I'm just enjoying hanging out with friends, taking advantage of the summer, going hiking and stuff. I spent some time reflecting on everything. I think if I'd been more vocal early on and stood up for myself, insisted that she pay rent, and not let her overstay, that maybe all this could have been avoided. But I'm glad I don't have to deal with her anymore, so I'm content with how everything ended up. Cheers, and be well. I don't think OP's got anything to blame themselves for in this situation. I think they did most of it completely right, and I probably wouldn't have done it any differently. Because initially they was just trying to be helpful and letting the mum move in. Then it escalated and OP's partner refused to put any boundaries in place and it went downhill from there, and OP took steps to get herself out of that situation. I certainly can't blame her for it. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.